My name is Garrett Mitchell, and at 24 years old, I never thought my own family would turn against me. I moved back home after college to save money, and always had a great relationship with my younger cousin Brianna. But when I refused to help her sneak out to a party one night, she destroyed my life with one horrific lie. A false accusation of sexual assault turned my family into strangers overnight. They chose to believe her without question, treating me like a criminal without a trial. Before I dive into this painful story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. Your support means everything as I share how my life fell apart and how I found the strength to rebuild it. I graduated with a computer science degree from the University of Michigan 2 years ago. The job market was competitive, and with student loans piling up, moving back to my hometown of Oak Ridge seemed like the smartest financial decision. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, welcomed me back with open arms. The plan was simple: live at home for a year or two, save aggressively, and then get my own place. Our family had always been tight-knit. Every Sunday without fail, we gathered at my grandparents' house for dinner. My Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert would bring my cousin Brianna, who was 16 at the time. My older sister Ashley would drive in from the next town over. These dinners were sacred family time, phones put away, everyone catching up on the week's events. Grandma insisting we all take second helpings of her famous pot roast. Holidays were even more elaborate affairs. Thanksgiving meant 3 days of preparation and enough food to feed half the neighborhood. Christmas involved a secret Santa exchange that had gotten increasingly elaborate over the years. 4th of July was always at the lake house, with Uncle Robert taking charge of the grill and competing with the neighbors for the most impressive fireworks display. In this family environment, Brianna and I had always been close. When she was younger, I was the cool older cousin who would play video games with her and sip her extra dessert when no one was looking. As she entered her teen years, I became something of a mentor. I helped her with math homework, drove her to soccer practice when her parents were busy, and gave her advice about navigating high school social dynamics. "Garrett is the only one who actually listens to me," she once told my Aunt Diana during a family dinner, which made me feel pretty good about our relationship. But over the past year, I noticed changes in Brianna. The sweet, enthusiastic kid was transforming into a moody teenager with an attitude. She became glued to her phone, constantly texting and rolling her eyes whenever adults asked about her day. Her circle of friends shifted from the soccer team to a group my aunt and uncle found questionable. Her grades started slipping, and she began testing boundaries, missing curfew, lying about where she was going, sneaking out at night. "I just want to live my life," she would snap at her parents. "Stop treating me like a child." Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert were at their wits' end. They grounded Brianna multiple times, took away her phone privileges, and even threatened to send her to summer school if her grades didn't improve. Each punishment only seemed to make her more rebellious. I tried to maintain my role as the cool cousin while still being a positive influence. When Brianna complained about her parents, I would listen sympathetically but gently remind her that they had rules because they cared. "They're so controlling," she vented to me one Sunday after dinner. "They act like I'm going to ruin my life if I go to one party. They're just worried," I told her. "High school can get crazy, and they want to keep you safe." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever. You used to be cool, Garrett. Now you sound just like them." That stung, but I understood the adolescent push-pull of wanting independence while still needing guidance. I remembered being 16 and feeling like the world was against me. So I tried to be patient with her mood swings and occasional attitude. Meanwhile, my own life was taking shape. I landed a job at Tech Solutions, a promising startup in town. The pay wasn't amazing, but the experience was valuable, and there was room for growth. I started dating Rachel Davis, a kindergarten teacher I met through a mutual friend. We clicked immediately, bonding over our shared love of hiking and terrible science fiction movies. I was saving diligently for my own apartment, calculating that by the end of the year, I could afford a decent one-bedroom place. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs with Brianna. There were small incidents, times when she asked me to cover for her so she could meet friends her parents had forbidden her to see, or requests to borrow my car without her parents knowing. I always refused, trying to explain my reasoning. I can't lie to your parents, Brianna. They trust me, and I won't break that trust. Each refusal was met with increasing resentment. The warm, affectionate relationship we once had was cooling. Sometimes I would catch her looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite place, something between disappointment and calculation. But I never imagined how far that resentment would go, or how completely it would shatter our family. The night that changed everything was a Friday in June. My parents were hosting a small dinner party with some neighbors, and Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert were invited. Brianna was supposed to stay at our house while her parents enjoyed a rare night out. I had plans with Rachel later but agreed to be home for dinner first. The evening started normally enough. My mom prepared her signature lasagna, and everyone gathered around the dining table, chatting about neighborhood gossip and local politics. Brianna was quieter than usual, constantly checking her phone under the table. After dinner, while the adults moved to the living room for coffee, Brianna pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I need your help with something," she whispered, her eyes darting to make sure no one was listening. "What's up?" I asked, loading plates into the dishwasher. "Zoe Williams is having this amazing party tonight. Everyone's going to be there." Her voice took on an urgent, pleading quality. "I need to go, Garrett. It's the party of the year." I frowned. "Your parents specifically said you're grounded this weekend because of that math test you failed. That's why I need your help," she insisted. "I just need you to cover for me. Tell them I went to bed early with a headache or something. I'll sneak out after they leave and be back before morning. They'll never know." "Brianna, no way. That's not happening." Her face fell, then hardened. "Come on, Garrett. I'd do it for you. It's not just about lying to your parents," I explained, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. "It's also about your safety. You're 16. These parties can get out of control with alcohol and who knows what else." "I'm not a baby," she snapped, loud enough that I glanced nervously toward the living room. "Everyone treats me like I can't make my own decisions. Look, I get it. High school social stuff feels like life or death. But there will be other parties, ones your parents actually allow you to attend." Her eyes narrowed. "You used to be cool. Now you're just another adult trying to control my life." "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you safe and not betray your parents' trust." "Fine," she hissed. "If that's how you want to be, you'll be sorry. I thought you were on my side." With that, she stormed out of the kitchen and up to the guest room where she'd be sleeping. I sighed, figuring she'd cool off by morning. Teenagers and their drama, right? I had no idea that her threat wasn't just empty words. The next morning, Brianna was unusually quiet at breakfast. She avoided eye contact with me and barely touched her food. When her parents came to pick her up, she hurried to the car without saying goodbye. I thought she was still mad about the party, and figured I'd give her some space to cool off. Later that afternoon, I was at Rachel's apartment when my phone rang. It was my mom, her voice tight and strange. "Garrett, you need to come to Diana and Robert's house right now." "Why? What's going on?" "Just come. Right now." She hung up without another word. A knot of anxiety formed in my stomach as I drove to my aunt and uncle's house. Something was very wrong. When I arrived, I was shocked to see several family cars in the driveway. My parents, my sister Ashley, even my grandparents. This impromptu family gathering on a Saturday afternoon was unprecedented. I knocked on the door, and my father answered. His face was a mask I didn't recognize, hard and distant. Without a word, he led me to the living room where everyone was gathered. The atmosphere hit me like a physical force, thick with tension and something else. Disgust? Fear? My Aunt Diana was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Uncle Robert stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, his face flushed with barely contained rage. My mother sat rigidly in an armchair, staring at the floor. My grandparents looked shell-shocked. Ashley was the only one who met my eyes, her expression confused and worried. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice sounding thin in the heavy silence. Aunt Diana looked up, her face contorting. "How could you?" she whispered, then broke into fresh sobs. Uncle Robert's face darkened further. "Sit down," he commanded, pointing to a chair set apart from everyone else, like I was on trial. As I sank into the chair, bewildered, Uncle Robert spoke again. "Brianna told us everything this morning." My mind raced. Everything about what? The party she wanted to attend? Had she made up some story about me agreeing to help her sneak out? "I don't understand," I said cautiously. "Don't play dumb," Uncle Robert snarled. "She told us what you tried to do to her last night." A chill ran down my spine. "What are you talking about?" Aunt Diana looked up, her voice shaking with emotion. "She told us how you came into her room last night. How you touched her. How you tried to." She couldn't finish the sentence, dissolving into tears again. The accusation hit me like a bucket of ice water. Sexual assault? My own cousin? The room seemed to spin around me. "That's insane," I stammered. "I never went near her room." "She's making this up because I refused to help her sneak out to a party." "Stop lying," Uncle Robert shouted, taking a threatening step toward me before my father put a restraining hand on his arm. "Brianna would never make up something like this. She was terrified, traumatized." "Where is she?" I demanded. "Let me talk to her." "This is a complete lie." "She's at her friend's house," Aunt Diana said. "We wouldn't let her stay here knowing you were coming over. She's afraid of you, Garrett." I looked desperately around the room, seeking any face that showed doubt. Any ally in this nightmare. "Mom, Dad, you can't believe this. You know me." My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father's face was stone. "Last night," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, "Brianna asked me to cover for her so she could sneak out to Zoe Williams' party. I refused. She got angry and threatened that I'd be sorry. That's what this is. Revenge because I wouldn't help her break the rules." "How dare you try to blame her?" Aunt Diana cried. "My daughter is not a liar. She described exactly what happened." Uncle Robert added coldly, "Details only someone who experienced it would know." "What details?" I challenged. "Because whatever she said, it's fiction. I was with you all during dinner. Then I went out with Rachel around 9. I have texts to prove it. You went upstairs before you left," my mother said quietly, speaking for the first time. "Around 8:30. I stared at her in disbelief. "To get my jacket from my room. I was upstairs for maybe 2 minutes. Brianna said it happened then," Uncle Robert said, as if this was definitive proof. "This is insane," I repeated, my voice rising with panic and frustration. "I would never, ever do something like that. To anyone, let alone my 16-year-old cousin. She's making this up to get back at me." No one spoke. The silence was damning. "I want to hear exactly what she's claiming," I insisted. "Because whatever it is, it's a lie. We're not going to force her to relive the trauma by repeating it," Aunt Diana said firmly. I turned to Ashley, the only person who hadn't condemned me yet. "Ashley, you know this is crazy, right?" She looked troubled, glancing between me and our parents. I don't know what to think, Garrett." "Get out of our house," Uncle Robert suddenly demanded. "Now. Before I do something I'll regret." "Robert," my father warned. "No, Thomas. I want him gone." I don't want him anywhere near my family ever again. I stood, shaking with adrenaline and disbelief. This is a mistake. A terrible mistake. Brianna is lying, and someday you'll all realize it. As I walked toward the door, I heard my grandmother's soft, disappointed voice. How could we have raised someone capable of such a thing? That question followed me out into the bright June afternoon, where the world continued turning as if my life hadn't just imploded. The drive home with my parents was excruciating. No one spoke. The air in the car was thick with unasked questions and unspoken accusations. I stared out the window, my mind racing through the implications of what had just happened. My reputation, my relationship with my family, my future, all hanging in the balance because of a vindictive lie. When we arrived home, I followed my parents into the living room, desperate to make them understand. Mom, Dad, you have to believe me. I would never do what Brianna is accusing me of. Never. My father sank heavily into his armchair, suddenly looking older than his 56 years. Garrett, we don't know what to think right now. Those words cut deeper than any shouting could have. My own parents didn't know whether to believe I was capable of sexually assaulting my teenage cousin. How can you say that? My voice cracked with emotion. You raised me. You know me. How can you even entertain the possibility that I would do something so horrible? My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Brianna has no reason to lie about something like this. She has every reason. I insisted. She's angry because I wouldn't help her break the rules. She wanted to sneak out to a party, and I refused. She literally threatened that I would be sorry. That's not the same as making up a sexual assault accusation. My father countered. She's 16, impulsive, and angry. She probably didn't think about how serious this would get. I paced the living room, feeling trapped. Have you even asked for any evidence? Or are you all just taking her word over mine automatically? My parents exchanged a glance that told me everything. They were, at minimum, entertaining the possibility that their son was a predator. I think you should stay with a friend for a few days, my father finally said. Give everyone some space to process this. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. You're kicking me out? Based on an accusation with zero evidence? It's not kicking you out, my mother said quickly. It's just, tensions are high right now. Diana and Robert are devastated, and family gatherings will be impossible if you're here. So I'm sacrificed to keep the peace? What about the fact that I'm innocent? No answer came. I retreated to my room, hands shaking as I called my best friend, Jason. We had known each other since elementary school. And if anyone would stand by me, it would be him. Jace, I need a place to stay, I said when he answered. Something terrible has happened. To his eternal credit, Jason didn't hesitate. My couch is yours, man. For as long as you need it. Over the next few days, the situation deteriorated further. I was blocked on social media by Aunt Diana, Uncle Robert, and several extended family members. Brianna had apparently shared her story widely, positioning herself as a victim and me as a predator. The family gossip machine went into overdrive. My cousin Tyler texted me. How could you do that to Brianna? You're dead to this family. My Aunt Patricia, who had always adored me, left a voicemail. I'm disgusted. Don't try to contact any of us again. Even friends of the family were reaching out, not to offer support, but to express their horror at my alleged actions. The panic attack started 3 days after the accusation. I woke in the middle of the night on Jason's couch, heart pounding, unable to breathe, convinced I was dying. Jason found me gasping for air at 3 in the morning and drove me to the emergency room, where a doctor explained it was anxiety. Your body thinks it's in danger, she explained gently. Given what you're going through, it's not surprising. Depression followed the anxiety. I could barely drag myself to work, where rumors had somehow already spread. Coworkers avoided eye contact. My boss called me into his office to ask if there was anything going on. That might affect my job performance. The only bright spots were Rachel, Jason, and surprisingly, my sister Ashley. Rachel stood firmly by my side despite pressure from her friends. "I know you," she said simply. "And I know you're incapable of what Brianna is claiming." Jason offered not just his couch, but his unwavering support. "This is insane, man. Anyone who believes this garbage doesn't deserve to have you in their life." And then there was Ashley. 5 days after the accusation, she showed up at Jason's apartment. "I don't believe it," she said the moment I opened the door. "I know you, Garrett. This isn't you." I nearly collapsed with relief. "Thank you," I whispered, fighting back tears. "Brianna's story doesn't add up," she continued, stepping inside. "The timing makes no sense. And she's changed details each time she tells it. Plus, she's been in trouble a lot lately. Mom and Dad don't want to admit it, but there's reason to doubt her. Ashley became my secret ally, my connection to the family that had exiled me. She reported that our parents were conflicted, torn between their knowledge of my character and the seriousness of Brianna's accusation. They're afraid of being wrong in either direction," she explained. "If they support you and you did it, they're enabling abuse. If they doubt Brianna and she's telling the truth, they're failing her. But they're failing me right now," I pointed out. "I'm their son, and I'm innocent." A week after the accusation, my parents asked me to collect more of my belongings from their house. They had decided I should stay away until things settled down, a time frame no one could define. I arrived at my childhood home feeling like a stranger. My mother hovered anxiously as I packed clothes and necessities, as if afraid to leave me alone in the house. My father stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. The weight of their suspicion was suffocating. "I didn't do this," I said as I zipped up my suitcase. "And someday you'll realize that. I just hope it's not too late for us when you do." Neither of them responded. As the second week of my exile began, I consulted with a lawyer, Michael Henderson, about potential defamation action. "The problem," he explained in his office, "is that defamation cases involving sexual assault accusations are extremely delicate. If we pursue this legally, it becomes public, which could damage your reputation further regardless of the outcome. So Brianna can just lie about me with no consequences?" I asked bitterly. "I didn't say that. We can build a case. But we need evidence. Text messages, witnesses, inconsistencies in her story. Anything that proves she's lying or had a motive to lie." I left his office with a plan. I needed to prove my innocence, not just assert it. The burden of proof had fallen on me, the accused, rather than my accuser. It wasn't fair, but it was reality. Living with Jason was a constant reminder of how much I'd lost. His one-bedroom apartment was cramped with both of us there. I slept on his couch, lived out of suitcases, and felt like a burden despite his assurances that I was welcome. I missed my room, my privacy, the comfort of family dinner conversations that didn't revolve around whether I was a sexual predator. At work, I requested a meeting with my supervisor, explaining the situation as calmly as I could. "I've been falsely accused of something terrible," I told him. "It's affecting my performance, and I wanted you to hear the truth from me directly." To his credit, he listened without judgment. "Focus on your work, Garrett. Whatever's happening in your personal life, don't let it derail your career too." It was good advice, but nearly impossible to follow. How could I focus on coding when my entire life was imploding? Still, work became a refuge of sorts, hours where I could lose myself in logical problems with clear solutions, unlike the messy, illogical nightmare my life had become. As the third week began, I felt increasingly homeless and disowned. The emotional toll was crushing. But somewhere beneath the pain and betrayal, a determination was forming. I would not accept this new identity they were forcing upon me, pariah, predator, person to be avoided and feared. I knew the truth, and somehow, I would make it known. On the advice of my lawyer, Michael Henderson, I began gathering evidence systematically. If the family wouldn't believe my word against Brianna's, then I needed proof. Document everything, Michael advised. Dates, times, conversations. Any prior incidents that might establish a pattern of behavior on Brianna's part. I created a detailed timeline of the night in question, including text messages with Rachel that confirmed when I left the house. I had solid alibis for much of the evening. But there was still that brief window when I went upstairs to get my jacket, the time Brianna claimed the assault occurred. My sister Ashley proved invaluable during this period. While maintaining the appearance of family solidarity, she began quietly investigating on my behalf. Brianna posted on Snapchat the night she claimed you assaulted her. Ashley reported during one of our clandestine meetings at a coffee shop across town. She was complaining about missing Zoe's party and how unfair her life is. Why would she be posting about a party if she had just been assaulted? It was our first real lead. Ashley promised to dig deeper into Brianna's social media activity that night. Meanwhile, I focused on establishing Brianna's motive. I wrote down every interaction we'd had in the months leading up to her accusation, particularly instances where I refused to help her circumvent her parents' rules. There was a clear pattern of escalating resentment. 2 weeks into our investigation, Ashley made a breakthrough. She had managed to access Brianna's computer while visiting Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert's house. I found text messages between Brianna and her friends, she told me, her voice tense with excitement. The day before she accused you, she texted Zoe complaining that you wouldn't help her sneak out. She wrote, and I quote, "Garrett thinks he's so perfect. He's going to regret not helping me." My heart raced. That proves premeditation. She was planning to do something to get back at me. There's more, Ashley continued. The morning after, before she made the accusation, she texted her friend Megan saying she was going to make Garrett pay and that she had the perfect plan that would totally work because everyone always believes the victim. It was the smoking gun we needed, clear evidence that Brianna had fabricated the accusation as revenge. Did you take screenshots? I asked urgently. Ashley nodded, patting her phone. Everything. I sent them to your email already. Armed with this new evidence, I contacted Michael immediately. He reviewed the screenshots and agreed they were compelling. This is exactly what we needed, he said. But we should gather more corroborating evidence before confronting your family. The more solid our case, the harder it will be for them to dismiss it. Our next break came from an unexpected source. Ellen Barnes, a longtime family friend, reached out to me directly. "Garrett, I've been hearing things about you that don't add up," she said when we met at a local diner. "I've known you since you were a child. This accusation doesn't fit the young man I know." Ellen revealed that she had been driving past our house the night of the alleged incident and had seen Brianna climbing out of a window around 10:30, well after I had left to meet Rachel. "I almost called your parents, but I figured it wasn't my place to get involved in family discipline issues," she explained. "But now, knowing what she's accused you of, I can't stay silent." Ellen agreed to provide a written statement about what she had witnessed. It wasn't definitive proof that Brianna's accusation was false, but it demonstrated she had lied about staying in that night and established a pattern of deception. The final piece fell into place when Ashley arranged a meeting with Brianna's friends Megan and Caitlin. She approached them at school, presenting herself as concerned about both Brianna and me. "I just want to understand what happened," she told them. "Brianna's story has some inconsistencies, and I'm worried about her." Under Ashley's careful questioning, the girls revealed that Brianna had admitted to them that nothing had happened with me. She said she made it up because she was mad that Garrett wouldn't let her go to the party. Megan confessed reluctantly. She didn't think it would turn into such a big deal. She thought her parents would just be mad at him for a while. "Has she done anything like this before?" Ashley asked. The girls exchanged uncomfortable glances before Caitlin spoke up. She told people that Mr. Peterson, our math teacher, tried to touch her inappropriately when she was staying after school for help. He almost lost his job, but then the school cameras showed he was never alone with her. This revelation was chilling. Brianna had a history of false accusations. With Megan and Caitlin's permission, Ashley recorded their conversation as additional evidence. By the end of the month, we had assembled a compelling case: text messages showing premeditation, an eyewitness who saw Brianna sneaking out, friends admitting she had confessed to lying, and evidence of a previous false accusation. The final unexpected ally emerged when Ms. Barbara Wilson, the school counselor, contacted me. She had been working with Brianna and had concerns about patterns in her behavior. "I can't share specifics due to confidentiality," Ms. Wilson explained over the phone. "But I've observed concerning patterns of manipulation and dishonesty. When I heard about the accusation against you, alarm bells went off." While she couldn't provide direct evidence, Ms. Wilson offered to speak to my parents about her professional concerns regarding Brianna's credibility. With our case complete, it was time for a confrontation. We decided to present the evidence at my parents' house, with key family members present. Ashley arranged the meeting, telling our parents she had important information about the situation. On a Sunday afternoon, exactly 1 month after the accusation, we gathered in my parents' living room. My mother and father, Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert, Ashley, and I sat in tense silence. Brianna had been told to wait upstairs until called. "Thank you for agreeing to hear me out," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've been accused of something terrible that I did not do. Today, I'm going to prove that Brianna's accusation is false." Uncle Robert started to protest, but my father raised a hand to stop him. "Let him speak, Robert." One by one, I presented the evidence: the timeline of that night, the text messages showing Brianna's plan for revenge, Ellen Barnes' statement about seeing Brianna sneak out, and the recorded conversation with Megan and Caitlin. The room grew increasingly quiet as the evidence mounted. Aunt Diana began to cry softly. Uncle Robert's face, initially set in angry disbelief, gradually slackened with shock. "There's more," I said. "Brianna has done this before, with her math teacher Mr. Peterson. The school cameras proved she was lying then, just as she's lying now." Ashley confirmed this, adding that Ms. Wilson, the school counselor, had expressed concerns about Brianna's pattern of behavior. "I want Brianna to come down here," I said finally. "I want her to explain these text messages and why her friends say she admitted to lying." After a heavy silence, Aunt Diana nodded, and Uncle Robert went upstairs to get her. When Brianna entered the room, her confident demeanor faltered at the sight of me. Her eyes darted around, taking in the somber faces of her parents and my parents. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice small. "Brianna," I said calmly, "we know the truth. We have your text messages planning to get revenge on me. We have statements from your friends saying you admitted making up the assault. Ellen Barnes saw you sneaking out that night. It's over." Her face crumpled, cycling through shock, anger, and finally, defeat. She looked at her parents, perhaps seeking rescue, but found only devastation in their expressions. "Is it true?" Aunt Diana whispered. "Did you lie about Garrett?" Brianna's silence was answer enough, but after a moment she nodded almost imperceptibly. "Why?" Uncle Robert demanded, his voice raw with emotion. "Do you understand what you've done? The damage you've caused?" "He wouldn't help me," Brianna burst out, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone treats me like a child. I just wanted to go to the party. All my friends were there. Garrett could have helped me, but he acted all superior and righteous. I was just so angry." "So you accused me of sexual assault?" I asked incredulously. "Do you have any idea what that's done to my life? To my reputation? How people look at me now? I didn't think it would go so far," she sobbed. I thought Mom and Dad would just be mad at you for a while. I didn't think everyone would find out, or that you'd have to leave, or any of it. It just spiraled. And then I couldn't take it back without getting in huge trouble. The room fell silent as the full weight of her confession settled over us. The lie that had torn apart our family was exposed, leaving us all to face the damage it had caused. "I'm sorry," Brianna whispered finally, though whether to me or her parents, or the room at large wasn't clear. But sorry wasn't enough. Not nearly enough for what she had done. In the immediate aftermath of Brianna's confession, I expected a wave of apologies. I had been vindicated, my name cleared. Surely now my family would recognize the terrible injustice I had suffered and work to make amends. I was wrong. After Brianna was sent upstairs, the family discussion took a turn I never anticipated. "This has been traumatic for everyone," my father began cautiously. "But now that we know the truth, we need to find a way to move forward as a family." I stared at him in disbelief. "Move forward? Just like that?" "Garrett," my mother said gently, "we understand you're hurt. But holding on to anger won't help anyone heal." "Holding on to anger?" I repeated, my voice rising. "It's been 30 minutes since you all found out I was falsely accused of sexual assault by my own cousin. I think I'm entitled to some anger." Aunt Diana spoke up, her voice still thick with tears. "Brianna made a terrible mistake. But she's just a child, Garrett. 16 is so young. Old enough to know exactly what she was doing," I countered. "Old enough to understand the consequences of accusing someone of sexual assault. Of course what she did was wrong," Uncle Robert conceded, though his tone suggested he was already looking for ways to minimize it. "She'll be punished appropriately. But she's still developing emotionally, still learning right from wrong." "And what about me?" I demanded. "What about the fact that I was thrown out of my home? That my own parents didn't believe me? That my reputation has been destroyed?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. It was Ashley who finally broke it. "Garrett deserves more than just moving forward," she said firmly. "He deserves acknowledgement of the harm done to him. He deserves apologies." Aunt Diana nodded reluctantly. "Of course we're sorry for what you went through, Garrett. It's been a difficult time for everyone." That non-apology, equating my trauma with everyone else's discomfort, ignited a fresh wave of anger within me. A difficult time? I was accused of being a sexual predator. I lost my home, my family's trust, my reputation. People look at me differently now. That's a bit more than difficult. "What do you want us to say?" Uncle Robert asked, an edge creeping into his voice. "We believed our daughter. Any parent would have. I want you to admit you were wrong," I said plainly. "I want real apologies. Not this sorry if you were hurt nonsense. I want accountability, for Brianna and for all of you who condemned me without evidence." Another silence fell, this one tenser than before. "I think we all need time to process," my father finally said. "Emotions are running high right now." And just like that, the conversation was shut down. No real apologies. No accountability. Just a vague suggestion that we all needed to heal and move forward as if we'd experienced a shared tragedy rather than one person being grievously wronged by another. In the days that followed, the family attempted to return to normal with disturbing speed. I was invited back home, welcome to Sunday dinners again. Treated as if my exile had been a minor misunderstanding rather than a profound betrayal. At the first family dinner after Brianna's confession, the atmosphere was strained but determinedly upbeat. Everyone made a show of acting normally, passing dishes, discussing work and weather, carefully avoiding any mention of the elephant in the room. Brianna was there, subdued but present. She had been grounded, indefinitely, according to Aunt Diana, had her phone confiscated, and was required to attend weekly sessions with Ms. Wilson. These consequences seemed laughably inadequate given the magnitude of her lie. When she mumbled a quiet, "Sorry," to me before dinner, I merely nodded, not trusting myself to speak. What could I possibly say? That I forgave her? I didn't. That it was okay? It wasn't. After dinner, I overheard my mother and Aunt Diana talking in the kitchen. "How long do you think Garrett will stay angry?" Aunt Diana asked. "Give him time," my mother replied. "But honestly, holding grudges only hurts the person holding them. I hope he can find it in his heart to forgive Brianna soon. For his own sake as much as hers." Their words hit me like a physical blow. They were more concerned about me forgiving Brianna than about the fact that I had been wronged in the first place. The narrative was already shifting. I was now the one with the problem because I couldn't move on quickly enough. 2 weeks after Brianna's confession, my parents invited me to dinner specifically to discuss healing the family. I arrived warily, already suspecting what was coming. "We've been thinking," my father began once we were seated in the living room, "that it might be helpful for you and Brianna to have a formal reconciliation. A chance for her to apologize properly and for you to express your forgiveness." "My forgiveness isn't automatic," I said coldly. "It has to be earned." My mother sighed. "Garrett, we understand you're hurt. But Brianna is suffering too. She's lost the trust of her parents, her friends know what she did, and she has to live with the guilt of her actions." "Good," I said bluntly. "Actions have consequences. That's a harsh way of looking at it." My father frowned. "She's 16. She made a terrible mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash or failing a test," I countered. "She deliberately accused me of sexual assault as revenge for not helping her break the rules." "That's not a mistake, it's malice." My parents exchanged glances, clearly disappointed in my attitude. It was infuriating. Somehow, I had become the problem for not being forgiving enough, while Brianna was being portrayed as a victim of her own immaturity. The situation came to a head at a family gathering the following weekend. Aunt Diana approached me while I was alone in the kitchen, her expression earnest. "Garrett, I know this has been hard for you. But Brianna really is sorry. She's been having nightmares about what she did. She's punishing herself more than we ever could." I set down my glass carefully. "With all due respect, Aunt Diana, I don't care about Brianna's nightmares. I had panic attacks for weeks. I still can't sleep through the night. I lost friends, nearly lost my job, and had to question whether my own family ever truly knew me. I understand that, but—" "No, you don't," I interrupted. "None of you do. You all want this to go away so you can pretend it never happened. But it did happen, and there have been no real consequences for Brianna, and no real apologies from any of you." Uncle Robert had entered the kitchen during our conversation and heard my last statements. His face darkened. "That's enough, Garrett. We've all apologized. Brianna has been punished. What more do you want?" "I want acknowledgement that what happened to me was serious," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I want genuine remorse. Not this performative let's all move on attitude. I want accountability." "You know," Uncle Robert said, his tone dangerously even, "I've been thinking about this whole situation. And I wonder if maybe you did do something to make Brianna uncomfortable. Not what she accused you of, maybe, but something that she misinterpreted." I stared at him, speechless with shock. "Robert!" Aunt Diana gasped. "I'm just saying," he continued, 16-year-old girls don't typically make up these kinds of accusations out of nowhere. There's usually some kernel of truth, some misunderstanding. And there it was, the ultimate betrayal. Even after Brianna had confessed to lying, even after all the evidence proved my innocence, Uncle Robert was still looking for ways to make me at least partially responsible for my own victimization. "I did nothing wrong," I said, each word precise and cold. "Nothing. Brianna lied because she was angry that I wouldn't help her break the rules. She admitted it. Her friends confirmed it. The evidence proved it. and you're still trying to find a way to blame me. By now, the raised voices had drawn others to the kitchen. My parents, Ashley, and several other family members crowded the doorway, watching the confrontation with tense expressions. "This isn't working," I said, looking around at the faces of my family, people who were supposed to love and support me unconditionally. "None of this is working. You all want to pretend everything's fine when it's not. You want me to forgive and forget without any real accountability. And some of you are still trying to find ways to make this my fault." I took a deep breath, suddenly clear about what I needed to do. I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend that what happened was a minor issue we can all move past with a group hug and some hollow apologies. I need space from this family. All of you. With those words, I walked out of the kitchen, past the stunned faces of my relatives, and out the front door. In my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, I made a decision that would forever change my relationship with my family. It was time to cut ties completely. The decision to break away from my family wasn't made in the heat of the moment. Though walking out of that gathering certainly felt like a point of no return. Over the next few days, I thought carefully about what cutting ties would mean and whether it was truly the right choice. After much reflection, I composed a letter to the entire family. I wanted my reasoning to be clear, thoughtful, and free from the emotional outbursts that might come in a face-to-face confrontation. To my family, I wrote, "After careful consideration, I've made the difficult decision to step away from our family relationship for the foreseeable future. The events of the past 2 months have shown me that my well-being is not a priority in this family dynamic." I went on to explain exactly why their response to Brianna's confession had been so hurtful. The lack of genuine apologies, the rush to move forward without accountability, and the continued attempts to minimize or rationalize what had happened. I was falsely accused of something terrible, and instead of receiving support and vindication when the truth came out, I was told to forgive quickly for the sake of family harmony. This is not how a healthy family responds to injustice within its ranks. I ended with boundaries for any future contact. I need time and space to heal from this betrayal. I ask that you respect my decision and not attempt to contact me until I reach out first. This includes family gatherings, holidays, and casual check-ins. When and if I am ready to reestablish contact, it will be on my terms, with clear expectations for how I deserve to be treated. I sent the letter by email to everyone, then blocked their numbers on my phone. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also strangely liberating. For the first time since Brianna's accusation, I felt in control of my own story. The fallout was immediate and intense. My parents showed up at Jason's apartment the day after receiving the letter, desperate to convince me I was overreacting. "Families have conflicts, Garrett," my father insisted. "You don't just walk away because things get difficult." "This wasn't a conflict," I replied calmly. "This was a betrayal followed by a refusal to make amends." My mother tried a different approach. "What about the good times? The years of love and support? Does none of that count anymore?" "It counts," I acknowledged. "But it doesn't erase what happened. And it doesn't obligate me to accept being treated like this." They left dejected, caught between their desire to keep the family intact and their loyalty to Diana, Robert, and Brianna. In the end, that loyalty won out. They continued attending family functions without me, maintaining relationships with everyone involved in my pain. Ashley, however, made a different choice. She called me the day after I sent the letter. "I'm with you," she said simply. "What they did, what they're still doing, is wrong. I won't pretend otherwise." Her support meant everything during those difficult weeks. While she didn't cut ties completely as I had, she made it clear to the family that she stood by me and believed I was justified in my decision. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work at Tech Solutions, channeling my hurt and anger into productivity. My boss noticed the change. "Whatever personal issues you were dealing with, You seem to be coming out the other side, he commented during a check-in. Your work has been exceptional lately. 2 months after cutting ties with my family, I was offered a promotion to senior developer with a substantial salary increase. The financial stability allowed me to finally move out of Jason's apartment and into my own place, a modest one-bedroom not far from Rachel's apartment. Rachel had been my rock throughout the ordeal. She never wavered in her support, never questioned my version of events, never suggested I should forgive for the sake of peace. When I signed the lease on my new apartment, she was there, helping me plan the space and celebrating this step toward independence. I'm proud of you, she told me as we toasted with champagne on the empty floor of my new living room. You've been through hell, and you're still standing. More than standing, you're thriving. 3 months after cutting ties, I began seeing a therapist to process the trauma of both the false accusation and the family betrayal. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that my decision to distance myself wasn't selfish or petty, it was self-preservation. Healthy boundaries aren't punishment, she explained during one session. They're protection. You're not cutting them off to hurt them, you're creating distance to heal yourself. Those therapy sessions were crucial in helping me process my anger without being consumed by it. I learned that forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone, it was a gift I might someday choose to give if and when it felt right. As I rebuilt my life, news filtered through Ashley about what was happening with the rest of the family. Brianna's life was unraveling in ways that felt like cosmic justice, though I took no pleasure in it. Her friends had largely abandoned her after learning about her lie. Her grades continued to plummet. She was caught drinking at school and suspended for a week. When she returned, rumors circulated that she had made similar accusations against a boy in her class, though this time no one believed her. She's spiraling, Ashley reported during one of our weekly dinners. Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert don't know what to do anymore. They've tried grounding her, therapy, taking away privileges, nothing works. I listened but offered no solutions. That wasn't my responsibility anymore. The holiday season was the hardest part of my self-imposed exile. Thanksgiving had always been a major family event, with everyone gathering at my grandparents' house for a 2-day celebration. This year, I spent it with Rachel, Jason, and a few other friends who had become my chosen family. We cooked together in my small apartment, making a turkey that was too big for my oven and side dishes that didn't quite match the family recipes I'd grown up with. But there was laughter, genuine affection, and not a hint of the tension that had characterized my last few family gatherings. To new traditions, Jason toasted, raising his glass. And to chosen family, Rachel added. Christmas brought another wave of complicated emotions. I received cards from extended family members who either didn't know the full story or were making tentative overtures. I left them unopened on my counter for days before finally reading them. Most contained generic holiday wishes with no mention of our estrangement. A few included notes like, "We miss you," or "Hope to see you soon." None acknowledged the reason for my absence. Ashley told me that my empty chair at Christmas dinner was like a ghost no one wanted to talk about. My parents had apparently explained my absence to the extended family as a temporary estrangement due to a misunderstanding, a characterization that made my blood boil when I heard it. In January, 6 months after Brianna's false accusation, I received an unexpected message from my 15-year-old cousin Jake, sent through a gaming platform where I hadn't thought to block family members. "I know what Brianna did to you," he wrote. "She's done similar things to other people. She told everyone at school that her friend's dad was creepy with her, and it wasn't true. She just said it because the girl didn't invite her to a sleepover. Everyone's afraid to be around her now because she might make up stuff." This was followed by messages from 2 other younger cousins, telling similar stories about Brianna's pattern of lying and manipulation. It seemed that while the adults in the family were committed to protecting her, the younger generation saw through her behavior. In February, Ashley brought news that shook the family to its core. Brianna's school had initiated a formal investigation into her behavior after multiple students reported her for making false accusations. The school counselor, Ms. Wilson, had compiled enough evidence of a pattern to warrant intervention. "They're talking about transferring her to an alternative school," Ashley told me. "One with more structure and psychological support. Aunt Diana is devastated. Uncle Robert is in denial. They keep saying Brianna is being persecuted." "And what about what she did to me?" I asked. "Has that come up at all?" Ashley's hesitation told me everything. "They still don't talk about it directly. It's like they've created this narrative where you overreacted to a teenage mistake." I shook my head, not even surprised anymore. "And our parents? They're torn. I think they know deep down that what happened to you was wrong. But they're so committed to keeping the peace with Diana and Robert that they won't stand up for you." As Brianna's situation deteriorated, Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert reached a crisis point. According to Ashley, they had begun calling my parents almost daily, desperate for advice about handling their increasingly troubled daughter. One evening in March, 7 months after I'd cut ties, my phone rang with Uncle Robert's number, a call that somehow made it through despite my blocks. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Garrett," he said, his voice ragged with exhaustion. "I know you don't want to talk to us, and I understand why. But we're desperate. Brianna is out of control, and you're the only one who truly saw it before anyone else. Please, any insight you have could help." The irony was almost too much to bear. After months of minimizing what Brianna had done to me, they were now asking for my help in dealing with her. "I'm not a therapist," I said coolly. "And I'm certainly not the right person to help Brianna, given our history." "But you knew," he insisted. "You knew she was manipulative when the rest of us were blind to it. You tried to be a good influence while setting boundaries. We should have listened to you." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd received from him. "Get her professional help," I advised. "Not just counseling at school, but intensive therapy. And stop making excuses for her behavior. Stop pretending her lies are just mistakes or misunderstandings. Hold her accountable." There was a long pause before he responded. "You're right. Thank you." I hung up feeling strangely hollow. There was no satisfaction in their desperation, no vindication in being proven right about Brianna's character. Just a sad recognition that this family I had once loved was broken in ways that might never be repaired. As the 1-year mark of Brianna's accusation approached, I reflected on how much had changed. I had a new apartment, a promotion, a stronger relationship with Rachel, and a circle of friends who had proven their loyalty during my darkest days. I was healing, slowly but surely, creating a life that wasn't defined by what had been done to me. The family I had lost was feeling the consequences of their choices, not because I had sought revenge, but because the same patterns that had allowed them to betray me were causing problems in other areas of their lives. Brianna's behavior was merely the most visible symptom of a deeper dysfunction. I maintained my boundaries firmly, returning unopened letters from my parents and declining invitations relayed through Ashley. It wasn't petty stubbornness driving this decision, but a clear-eyed recognition that re-engaging without fundamental changes would only lead to more pain. "Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them?" Rachel asked one evening as we walked through the park near my apartment. I considered the question carefully. Maybe someday. But only if they truly understand what they did and take responsibility for it. I won't settle for less than that again. It wasn't the ending I would have chosen for my family's story, but it was the beginning of something important, a life built on self-respect, truth, and the courage to demand better treatment than I had received. That, I was learning, was a victory in itself. 1 year after Brianna's false accusation turned my life upside down, I stood in the kitchen of my apartment, making coffee and watching the morning light filter through the windows. Rachel was still asleep in the bedroom, her presence a comforting constant in this new life I had built. So much had changed in 12 months. The promotion I received at Tech Solutions had led to even more opportunities. I was now leading a small team developing a promising new app, with talks of equity in the company's future. Rachel and I had grown closer through the adversity, our relationship stronger for having weathered such a storm together. 2 weeks earlier, I had asked her to marry me during a weekend hiking trip, and the ring on her finger caught the sunlight as she slept. My friendship with Jason had deepened into something like brotherhood. He had been there at my lowest point, offering his couch and his unwavering support when my own family had turned away. Ashley remained my connection to the family I had left behind, though she was careful to respect my boundaries about what information I wanted to hear. The apartment I had leased in haste had become a true home, a space untainted by the betrayal and pain that had characterized my parents' house in those final weeks. Here, I was creating new memories, new traditions, new patterns that reflected the person I was becoming rather than the victim I had been. The healing hadn't been linear. There were still days when anger surged unexpectedly, triggered by a random reminder or a passing thought. There were moments of sadness for what had been lost, the comfort of Sunday family dinners, the sense of belonging to something larger than myself, the unconditional support I had once taken for granted. Dr. Martinez, my therapist, had helped me understand that these feelings weren't setbacks but natural parts of the healing process. Grief isn't just for death, she explained during one session. You're grieving the loss of your family as you knew it, the loss of trust, the loss of innocence about how the world works. That grief will come in waves, and that's okay. I had learned to ride those waves rather than being overwhelmed by them, to acknowledge the feelings without being defined by them. It was progress, messy and imperfect but real. 9 months into my self-imposed exile from the family, Ashley had brought news that our parents had finally, privately admitted they had handled the situation terribly. Mom was crying. She told me over coffee. She said they were so afraid of taking sides that they ended up betraying you when you needed them most. Dad agrees. They know they messed up, Garrett. Have they said this to Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert? I asked. Ashley shook her head. Not directly. They're still caught in this impossible position of wanting to support you while not alienating them. It's not impossible, I said quietly. It just requires courage. 2 weeks after that conversation, I received a letter from my parents, not a holiday card or a casual note, but a lengthy, heartfelt apology. They acknowledged their failure to stand by me, their rush to maintain family peace at the expense of justice, their inability to face the truth about Brianna's manipulation. We failed you as parents, they wrote. We were so concerned about doing the right thing in a terrible situation that we forgot the most right thing of all, believing in our son. We understand if you cannot forgive us, but we want you to know that we recognize our grave mistake. The letter moved me more than I expected. After a week of reflection, I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between my apartment and their house. It was the first time I had seen them in months, and the change in them was visible. They looked older, more tentative, the confidence of parental authority replaced by the humility of people who recognize their own fallibility. Thank you for meeting us, my father said, his voice rough with emotion. I appreciate the letter, I replied, maintaining a careful distance. It meant a lot to hear you acknowledge what happened. We talked for nearly 2 hours, working through the events of the past year from perspectives that had been impossible in the heat of the moment. They explained their thought processes, the fears and pressures that had led to their failure. I described the devastating impact of their choices, the isolation, the panic attacks, the fundamental shift in how I viewed family bonds. We want to rebuild our relationship, my mother said tearfully. Whatever that looks like, however long it takes. I'm willing to try, I told them. But it has to be different. I need you to respect my boundaries, especially regarding Aunt Diana, Uncle Robert, and Brianna. We understand. My father nodded. Your relationship with them is separate from your relationship with us. It was a start, tentative and fragile, but a beginning nonetheless. We agreed to weekly phone calls and monthly dinners. A slow rebuilding of trust that acknowledged the damage done without demanding instant forgiveness. As for Brianna, her story had taken a darker turn. After multiple incidents at school and a particularly troubling episode where she had accused a neighbor's son of stalking her, another claim proven false by security cameras, Aunt Diana and Uncle Robert had finally been forced to confront the severity of her issues. She was now in a residential treatment program specializing in adolescents with behavioral and psychological challenges. According to Ashley, the initial diagnosis suggested a complex mix of issues including compulsive lying, attention-seeking behavior, and a concerning lack of empathy. "They're finally getting her the help she needs," Ashley told me. "But it took hitting rock bottom for them to see it." I felt no satisfaction in Brianna's troubles. Just a sad recognition that her behavior had hurt many people, including, ultimately, herself. The path of manipulation and lies she had chosen had led to consequences that would shape her life long after the treatment program ended. Throughout this journey, I had learned painful but valuable lessons about family, trust, and my own resilience. I learned that family bonds, despite their biological basis, are not immune to betrayal. The people who should love you most unconditionally can sometimes fail you most completely. This was a bitter truth to accept. But acknowledging it had freed me from the obligation to maintain toxic relationships in the name of family loyalty. I learned about the power of chosen family, friends like Jason who showed up without question, partners like Rachel who stood firm when it would have been easier to walk away. These bonds, formed by choice rather than blood, had proven stronger in crisis than many of my familial connections. I learned that forgiveness is a personal journey, not a social obligation. The pressure to forgive quickly, to move on, for the sake of others' comfort, ignores the real work of processing betrayal. True forgiveness, if it comes at all, cannot be rushed or demanded. It must be freely given when the heart is ready. Most importantly, I learned about my own strength, a resilience I never knew I possessed until it was tested by the most painful experience of my life. I had faced the destruction of my reputation, the loss of my family's trust, the collapse of my sense of safety and belonging. And I had survived. More than survived, I had rebuilt, stronger and wiser than before. As the morning sun climbed higher, I heard Rachel stirring in the bedroom. Soon she would join me for coffee, and we would plan our day, our wedding, our future. A future that now included careful, boundaried contact with my parents but still excluded Aunt Diana, Uncle Robert, and Brianna. A future built on the understanding that relationships must be founded on mutual respect, accountability, and truth, not just shared history or familial obligation. I had lost much in the past year, but I had also gained a profound clarity about what truly matters in life. Not the approval of people who would believe the worst of you at the first accusation. Not the comfort of belonging to a family that prioritizes peace over justice. But the integrity of standing in your truth, the courage to demand better treatment, and the wisdom to build a life surrounded by people who prove their love through actions, not just words. The journey wasn't over. Healing rarely follows a neat timeline with a definitive endpoint. But standing in my kitchen that morning, I knew that I had crossed an important threshold. The false accusation that was meant to destroy me had instead revealed strengths I never knew I had. The family betrayal that should have broken me had instead freed me to build something better. It wasn't the story I would have chosen for myself. But it was my story now, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of truth to prevail. Even when the path is long and painful. What would you do if you were in my position? Have you ever had to cut ties with family members for your own well-being? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family betrayal. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into.